The refugee hiring event is not a job fair. It's very different. You have a situation where individuals who are looking for a job, who are generally very highly skilled refugees, are able to come to this hiring event, and based on the process, they can get an immediate job offering, or they will move to the second stage. The refugee hiring event is actually a flagship initiative under the stewardship of what's called the Refugee Jobs Agenda Roundtable.
What the Refugee Jobs Agenda Roundtable was seeing was that the traditional job fairs and career fairs, and many of those were being held across the country, refugees were not getting the jobs at the same rate as other newcomers. And that specific gap concerned the roundtable. So if you think about employers that go to a traditional job fair or a career fair, what we have been hearing over time from many of our clients is that this is a volume game. As many newcomers are squeezed into a small space or a large space in a limited amount of time, and if 3,000 to 5,000 newcomers show up, you think about how much time an employer gets to spend with each individual newcomer, it's very short. I mean, at best, a newcomer will get a chance to hand over their resume, do a quick 30-second, if that, pitch about themselves, and then the next person in line will get a chance to do the very same thing. And we hear that only 3 to 5% anecdotally of the people that attend, the newcomers that attend, may get jobs down the road. At the hiring event model, the employers, they get to actually interview for 20 to 30 minutes pre-screened refugee candidates who've applied for an open role at the company. So these are high quality interactions, and the outcome is more certain. So either they can be offered a job on the spot, or they can be passed through to a serious second round interview, because many employers can't hire on the spot. So what are the key features of this event? There's really three: collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. And what I mean by that is this is a highly localized event, even though the model itself has been nationally developed. It's localized to the capacities of the participating stakeholders: settlement agencies, corporations and employers, and governments. So it can be as small or as large as the capacity for that local community can handle. And it is all about collaboration. It's about each one of these stakeholders taking an active part in the execution on event day to maximize outcomes. There is a stigma attached to refugees in Canada, unfortunately. And that stigma is that these refugees are only capable of entry-level survival jobs. So this hiring event is intentional in having a wide dispersion of junior, mid, and senior level jobs. By doing this, yes, we want to get our refugees in Canada employed, but we also want to change the narrative at the same time, that refugee talent is capable of more than just entry-level warehouse jobs. And having a distribution is an important part of signaling to corporate Canada that refugee talent can be so much more utilized than it currently is perceived.
We are very deliberate around the employers who we basically bring in to partner with us. And it's a collective effort. The employers basically must submit open vacancies. They have to send in interviewers who have the decision-making authority to ensure that jobs are offered on site. So, that really makes a difference in terms of those who can make immediate decisions or use the judgment to move them to the next stage.
It's really about division of labor among the participating local settlement agencies. The lead settlement agency acts as a coordinating force between all the settlement agencies and their refugee candidates. The lead agency will be the one responsible for pre-screening all of the refugee applications into the strongest pools to be interviewed on event day. The lead agency would inform the participating agency that one of your candidates has been selected for an interview on event day for this specific job. That agency will then schedule a prep interview with that candidate to make sure that they are fully aware and can put their best foot forward on event day. prior to the event, their resume is shared with the employer so that they have a chance to review the 10 candidates' resumes that they'll be meeting with. And the employers themselves attend prep interviews prior to event day. And during a prep interview, the lead agency will reinforce the fact that this is a very specific population, these refugees. So we prime them for being sensitive to things that are specific to this population. For example, if you look at a Canadian resume, someone who's grown up in this country, versus a refugee resume, someone that's been forcibly displaced, one glaring difference would be a time gap in the two professionals. It may be a matter of months or years where this refugee candidate hasn't worked. And that to a Canadian employer may look very strange, and chances are you're going to bypass that candidate. So we sensitize our participating employers to the fact that you may see things like that, but don't discount it. This is a part of their forcibly displaced journey. It isn't a part of their willingness to work. Part of the priming is we say, you really need to be aware that accents are going to be part of the game. There won't be a single person you interview that day that doesn't have an accent. And it does lead to good results. And then, so what? If the refugee interviews but doesn't get the job, is that a bad outcome? And absolutely not. So by design, what we have decided to do on event day is tell the employer to please give honest feedback to the refugee candidate, even if that honest feedback involves a decline. Thank you very much. Here's the reason why we are not moving forward with the interview process. And that refugee gets that written feedback, and they take it to what we call Coach's Corner on event day. Coach's Corner is staffed by employment counselors at the participating settlement agencies, and their job is to take this feedback from the employer, from the interview that just happened, and to give some real-time coaching to this individual candidate. It may be disappointing to the candidate they didn't get the job, but what we hear later from the candidates is that coaching that they got was a huge capacity building moment for that refugee candidate, which they took forward into their future interviews. And when they eventually got a job in Canada, they came back to the settlement agency to say, thank you so much, because that was so beneficial, that feedback, which I then took to my next interview. So the capacity building of an individual refugee candidate who may not have been successful on event day is, again, a big part of the success of these events.
Hiring event model, and this has evolved and it gets better over time. I think there's 3 or 4 key elements that really differentiate it. One is the fact that it is iterative. It gets better over time, and we learn because it's repetitive and it's involving a number of the same organizations over time, and we learn together. That's fairly unique. The second part of that, it is very collaborative as a result, and it requires a little bit of trust across employers, settlement agencies, governments, and other organizations. That sort of collaboration doesn't happen every day, and it takes work. That to me is a different system. It's a way to change the system, and I think that differentiates it.
This is another hidden KPI. The trust in other settlement agencies to do a good job in the piece of work that they are given with the specific refugee hiring event is huge. And what we've seen at Jumpstart is, because of our limited capacity and the number of staff we have, this outcome has helped us when we are trying to fill jobs that we don't have clients for. We reach out to another settlement agency. We're not territorial about it, and they are more than willing to lend talent toward that job, and vice versa. So the collaboration at the agency level is starting to go up because they're seeing successful outcomes from these refugee hiring events. So what were the challenges we faced as we continue to evolve the refugee hiring event model, and how did we overcome them? We learned at the very beginning that the more volume of applications, the more efficient we needed to be in terms of pre-screening. It was a large amount of work that our traditional paper-based systems were being overwhelmed with. So we started to look at digital options, and we at Jumpstart, we use a platform called Lever. It just makes it so much more efficient for online applications to be pre-screened into strong and weak pools, and then to further filter that down into the top candidates for event day. The other thing was collaboration. So as much as, every agency will say, every settlement agency will say that we love to collaborate, the reality on the ground is that we don't. We typically compete with each other. And here, the key introduction was that even though Jumpstart was a lead agency in the event, we were not the central convener. I think that would play to the competitive spirit of settlement agencies. The central convener was a non-settlement agency, World Education Services. Being a central convener there, it opened up the door to more collaboration by the participating settlement agencies because the success was neutral. It wasn't one agency getting all the glory of a successful event. So those two things, the use of technology and a central convener that wasn't from the settlement agency space, were the key ingredients to allowing us to continue to evolve this in a successful collaborative way. What are the qualitative and the quantitative ways we measure outcomes for this refugee hiring event model? Lever allows us to track the number of applications along with their resumes that applied initially. It allows us to track how many were shortlisted into eventual interviews on event day. When the refugee finishes their interview and they get a decision at that point, yes, we're going to pass you through the second round. Yes, we're going to hire you, or no, thank you, and we're going to pass. We collect that feedback too. So we get event day outcomes. We also follow up with the employers post-event. Should there be a post-hiring event set of interviews, we want to know their eventual hiring outcome. And we make it a condition of employers participating in the event that they will report back to the central agency. And last but not least, we survey each one of the different segment groups. The settlement agencies, we have some debriefing meetings post-event. What did they see? What gaps there were? What could be done differently? We survey our refugee clients that attended the event. We ask them the same things, what worked, what could be better, and we make adjustments going forward. And we also do the same with employers.
So what we have observed in the events that we've had in the past is that the success rate ranges from 60 to 85%. It really depends on the position that's being offered. It depends on the geographic area, because some are large and some are smaller employers. So 60 to 85% success rate for all the refugees coming in. Just, to basically assess that against job fairs. When individuals come in for job fairs, less than 5% of job seekers actually get a job. So you can see already that all the effort that the partners are putting in is resulting in a pretty high success rate.
So the City of Moncton was very pleased to partner with WES and Jumpstart Refugee Talent on a new model of hiring events. The hiring event that we did in Moncton was a great success. We had 8 local employers participate. We had 43 candidates, and 85% of all of those candidates that attend either A, secured employment, or B, moved on to the second stage of employment. So for us, the results were huge. We were very happy with the results and hope to continue hosting these types of events in the City of Moncton every year.
The real success, I think, of this model is that there's business value. Value for everybody, and that's the business case, and the efficiency is a key part of that. Where if I'm an employer and I'm able to come in and do 10 interviews and I come out with 7 job offers, that's a success rate that I'm not going to get any other way, even with the different population of candidates, more credentialed or Canadian work experience. You can't see that sort of success. So there's really high, returns from the efficiency of it.
It's also great from an efficiency standpoint for the settlement agencies who will collaborate with different pieces of the event to ensure success. One settlement agency in and of itself is always strapped for bandwidth and budget, but collectively pooling their resource together, they can do so much more. And we see that in the way of outcomes. They get more refugees hired into meaningful work at the end of these events. We survey all of our refugee candidates that attended the event day. The key question we ask them is, would you do this again? Would you refer a friend to the next refugee hiring event? And overwhelmingly, 80% of them will say, yes, I will, or I will refer a friend.
we measure participation. Have we increased the number of employers who are participating in this event? Have we diversified the kinds of employers who are participating in the event? The first year we did this, it was obvious. It was the big financial services companies who were there. The next year we did this, I remember very clearly, a medium-sized automotive company who was there in a significant presence and made a number of job offers that were based on technical automotive skills. That was actually very interesting for me. And the last year, there were even more small and medium-sized businesses there. And that has to be a plus for us, because who actually hires in this country? 90% of our labor force is hired by small and medium-sized businesses, not by big business. We measure success also by, is this good idea? And it is really a very good idea. Does this good idea have long legs? Is it traveling? And sure enough, we've now got interest from different parts of the maritime and likely in different parts of the nation, including, BC. So again, we measure this not just by what we do, but who picks us up and replicates and maybe adapts in a different way so that we can all learn together.
The advice that I would give to other organizations looking to implement a similar type of program would be to certainly go for it. Making sure you have the right partners around the table early on, making sure that these agencies and community stakeholders are engaged in the process, and then really taking a look at the candidates that are applying to the positions and making sure that they have the support and knowledge and able to not only have that interview, but really get to the next stage in employment.
The refugee hiring model could be used for different client groups, whether you're an international student looking for a position or you're a new immigrant who's come through the economic class. The model is firm, because what it actually does is that it's an efficient way to bring people in, recognize their skills by supporting them in the way we conduct interviews, and they can get a job and they can move on. So in my mind, this is a powerful model that could be used for a number of different groups. What becomes important, though, is those partnerships. So we need employers who understand that the investment is going to yield people who they can hire straight away. These are newcomers who can basically contribute.
So as much as Jumpstart, in collaboration with World Education Services and the Refugee Jobs Agenda Roundtable, has perfected and innovated along the way with the refugee hiring events we've hosted thus far, we know at Jumpstart, we don't have the capacity to change the system. That is our ultimate goal, is to change the Canadian system and to have every agency that hosts a traditional job or career fair to think about how they may take elements of this hiring event model or replicate it entirely in their local communities. The most aspirational thing we can do at Jumpstart is to help change the system. And we know we don't have the bandwidth to do that ourselves. So what we are doing is to educate other agencies, other employers, other municipalities about what the event is. We're hosting a number of workshops into how to host your own local hiring event. And our hope over time is that more agencies start to incorporate the model into their current ways of doing things, with the bottom line of more effective outcomes.
It's a great opportunity to add another tool in our collective community toolboxes to make sure that newcomers not only secure employment, but also are able to thrive in our communities. And oftentimes that first component to that process of integration is securing employment to make sure that people can provide for their families. So it's a great opportunity to help connect individuals with additional employment barriers with employment in your community. It's a win-win, win for the employers and win for the candidates.